Hi, my name is Rich. I use the he, him pronouns, and you're watching my YouTube channel where I play amazing tabletop role playing games with friends. This is the new series I launched in 2023 calling MCU Sundays. So, Marvel Cinematic Universe, hashtag Marvel, make my Marvel, etc., Excelsior, all that fun stuff. The idea is that we are all gathering together to tell different stories in a made up Marvel Cinematic Universe using elements from TV shows, movies, and also the Marvel comics to come together and use different tabletop RPGs to do so as the vehicle. This time for April of 2023, we're doing a series of Primetime Adventures. Now, PTA, as I will invariably call it, is this super cool, one of the very first story games as listed as story games. This is the third edition that we'll be playing. Primetime Adventures, written by Matt Wilson, and it is the idea of playing the game of television drama. It's the series that you always wanted to exist. I am the GM, otherwise known as the producer in the game, and the pitch, friends, for this series is wild. Inspired by things like Loki, as well as Sliders in the comic book Exiles. We're simply calling it, and yes, I know there's already a movie and a bunch of other stuff, but Disney has all the money in the world, so we're launching this on Disney Plus in our mind's eye. It's called Nightcrawler. And the pitch is, hashtag oops all Nightcrawlers. There, that's the short version of the pitch. So I'm excited to play Primetime Adventures with these folks. I have run Primetime PTA a few times, and everyone here, at least from our emails I recall, it is their first foray into PTA. Very excited. So let's go around and meet our players, and then I will set the scene for a pilot episode, which will be an abbreviated episode because we spent 2/3 of our first session, as I expected we would, creating the series and the characters. So let's start on the left-hand side of the character keeper, heading towards the right. So Marley, if you could introduce yourself and tell us just like a brief synopsis of your protagonist. Very brief.
Hi, I'm Marlene, she, her, and yeah, I am playing Kurt Wagner, not Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler was when he was younger. This is very similar to our mainstream Marvel Nightcrawler, except he is older. He has gone through all the adventures. He has saved the world multiple times. He has the scars and damage to prove it. And now he is retired and just wants people to leave him alone. But that, of course, is not how that will go down.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Marley. Next up is Adrian's turn to introduce yourself, Adrian, and tell us a bit about your Nightcrawler.
Hi, my name is Adrian, he, him pronouns. And my Nightcrawler is Father Knight. In 1602 Elizabethan England, he's a Catholic priest involved with the Catholic resistance. He is guilty, feeling guilty because he was involved with a failed assassination plot. And yeah, he is a bit confused because through all this multiversal stuff, I think there might be a girl that has turned up claiming to be his daughter. We'll find out about that.
I didn't catch the failed assassination plot part. Who did you fail to assassinate? Who's still around and probably an antagonist?
King James the First.
Oh.
In a little thing called the Gunpowder Plot. It was the Nightcrawler all along.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. That's great. That's great. And finally, Andesh, if you could introduce yourself and tell us about your Nightcrawler.
Yeah, I'm Anders, he, him. My Nightcrawler is Captain Crawler, pirate captain. I don't think we've settled on a time period exactly. He rescued some young mutants from persecution. They probably weren't called mutants, but witch children or something, and they hijacked a ship, and now they're pirates. And he's trying to be a captain and lead and protect them. Yeah.
Wild. Yeah, Age of Sail is the only thing that we've defined. That, oh, great font for Captain Crawler, by the way. That is very piratical. This is great. Oh, love it. Hashtag all Nightcrawlers, the series. So good. We yeah, I'm gonna lean to our Kurt Wagner. Are you going with Wagner instead of Wagner, Marley, for how you're pronouncing Kurt's last name?
I was going to pronounce it Wagner, but
Wagner? Okay, cool.
Mhm.
We open in we open in Kurt Wagner's universe. It's New York. It's MCU, so everything seems to center off of New York unless it's She-Hulk, which I loved She-Hulk. So that is not a slight in any way, shape, or form, but got lots of New York touchstones in Marvel anyway. We open in MCU New York. We see a few, I think, establishing shot is skyline of New York. In Kurt Wagner, Old Man Kurt's world, what is one part of the skyline of New York? And if you don't know it's New York skyline, don't worry about it. But if there is one that you know that is missing or is new, saying, "Oh, this is New York, but not exactly our default New York."
I think there is a space elevator connected to the UN, so that intergalactic ambassadors have a way to dock their ships and get to the meetings.
Oh wow! So yeah, we see New York, and it kind of pans across the skyline, and then we see the UN and this weird space elevator. We see the silhouettes of various spaceships telling us this is the future, baby. Camera starts to zoom in faster, perhaps some drone footage with a little bit of CG to show more high-tech devices, along with our everyday New York street life, and then it focuses on a we see a large cathedral to sign off to the side, St. Mary's Cathedral. And
yeah, and we zoom in and we see that we have been looking at the skyline from Kurt Wagner's perspective. He is sitting, he is lounging in a giant stained glass window in this old church. It's got a tower. That's how he's got his good view. He's holding a cup of coffee, which he takes a sip out of, finishes the mug, and then we see him sigh and turn to go back inside. Shall I continue?
oh no, just a moment as I decide to throw in a bit of oddness as you start to head inside Old Man Kurt. We hear a little bamf sound, and a small voice says,
Hey, Ted, where you going?
I'm going to put away the mug. I'm not going anywhere. And he reaches over and like musses the Bamf's hair.
yeah, the Bamf, which is a small Nightcrawler, about what, like 2 foot tops, maybe smaller, bamfs up to your shoulder, snags your coffee cup away, teleports away, drops it into the sink. You hear it break, but then turns on the water, scalding hot, and starts grabbing a Dawn bottle and squeezing it hard so that all kinds of way too much dishwasher soap comes out to fill, and the suds start bubbling up. What do you do?
Kurt suddenly disappears from where he is in a bamf of dark smoke and appears at the sink, already holding the dish soap, so he can take it away from the bamf, and then picks up the bamf with the other hand, and then turns off the water with his tail, and says, "We've talked about this. You can only wash the plastic mugs,
I'm helping.
the plastic mugs, not the glass ones."
Then a couple more bamfs pop up and start hopping down, up and down on the counter, pointing at this third bamf and scolding it for using glass, not plastic, glass, not plastic, glass, not plastic. This, I assume, is regular for Kurt. So how does Kurt normally deal with the childishness of the bamfs?
So Kurt, does not admit that he has actually gotten quite fond of the Bamfs. And so he mostly deals with it. He's being kind of grumpy about it and all, but it's not like he would ever think of trying to throw them out. He lost that war long ago. So mostly he just, we see him pull out the trash bin and start putting dishware in it, and we see that there are other broken things inside it as well. And as we scan around the house, we see that there has been various alterations of child-proofing and things like that. There's like safety
Like
plugs,
foamy
over
things on all the
electrical.
corners of the tables and stuff. I love that. That's cool.
Yeah. And shelves labeled plates for Bamps and then plates for Kurt, things like that.
Awesome. Sweet. So this again was just a pocket scene introducing the character. We're not going to dip into mechanics. So we see all of that. Then I think there's a moment where one of the Bamfs throws a cup up into the air. Another Bamf ports to catch it in midair, and then the cup starts to fall along with the Bamf, and then it ports again, splashing into the water. And we use that as a transition piece, that bit of the water streaming, and then we hear the whoosh sound of the ocean, and the camera pulls back again, and we see this piratical ship with a number of cleverly placed Easter eggs of various X-Mini mutants, but there at the helm is Cabin Crawler. Like, are you at the helm? Yeah, he's behind the giant wheel. Because I see what was that? Yeah, what do we see? We see your first mate, Kitty Pryde, the young Kitty Pryde with a little purplish dragon on her shoulder, little baby dragon, little tiny one. Does she also have a tri-corner hat? Or just long hair flowing kind of deal? Yeah, she has a tri-corner hat just like you. She kind of looks like she's dressing like you, a little bit of that modeling to look like the older version. And Kitty says, "Captain Crawler, we're coming upon the shore of New York." She points out, and we see another skyline, but it's a much shorter New York because it is the age of sail. I guess it would be. Yeah, sure, we'll call it New York. It's fine. We don't have to be historically perfectly accurate at all, because if we try to do that, it's going to slow me down.
Yes, I think we will find a safe harbor here for the moment, at least.
Nice. Yeah, so we see you sailing forward. There are other ships that come out. But what's something about our skyline that indicates to us that this is a pretty. We have mutants. Is it a fantastical setting that Captain Crawler is in? Is his world magical?
Yeah, I think so.
Nice. So what is it we see along the skyline that indicates that to us, the clever eyes pick out?
Ooh, we see the shining spire of the Sanctum Sanctorum of the Sorcerer Supreme. I'm not sure who that is at this point, but yeah, I think it's like someone in the crew points it out, and they all go to. Too many of them run to gawk at the city rather than doing the job with the sails.
Nice. Cool. And what's one of the members of your crew who runs to gawk at the city that we would go, oh, that's so and so from the X-Men? That's that one character from the X-Men.
I think there's a very young Aurora Storm.
Awesome.
And I don't think she has like her full weather powers, but we see her fly for a little bit, like on a gust of wind.
That's great. I love that. That's cool. Get down from there, Kitty says. I've told you about that. You're going to fall. I'm not going to fall. Don't be stupid.
She can handle herself.
Nice. So Aurora will fly up past the sails, and then she comes up to the crow's nest and drops in and maybe sticks her tongue out at Kitty. Pride stares up at her, and then Kitty decides to yell at some Russian young man to hurry up and get to work, and he replies in obvious Russian accent, so that we all like, wait, is that other X-Men guy? He's super muscular and he's stripped to the waist, so we have just a little bit of sex appeal, but not too much. And yeah, that's what we get. We see him this Russian shirtless guy as he's pulling on some rope, and the sail starts to change, and then the camera uses the motion of his arm and the muscles, and it kind of zooms in, and then the soundscape changes. All the oceans fade away, all the soundscape drops out, and we hear the tolling of a bell in the distance, and all of the light from the sun, it drops away, and we can see that there's the fluttering of candle light here, and how do we know that this is the 1600s, Father Knight?
I think there's a mass going on in Latin.
Nice.
And it's a funeral.
Ooh. Is it a funeral for one of the revolutionaries?
Yeah, I think so. The thing is, it must be like a small chapel, some private small chapel at some, like a secret chapel that's supposed to not be in use anymore, but it is. And I think, yes, it's basically a funeral for someone who was killed during this failed assassination attempt. And I think Father Knight is officiating.
Cool. Now, I've done my little pocket scenes of introduction of each of the characters. We're actually going to officially move we've got half an hour, and I'd like to carve at least 10 minutes for Stars and Wishes at the end. I'd like to move into an actual Primetime Adventures scene with Father Knight. So the first thing that we determine when we enter into a scene, and you can pop to the rule summary is helpful, is this a character scene or a plot scene? Character scene means that we're going to investigate Father Knight's issue. a plot scene means that we're going to progress forward with the plot, which I'll tell you the plot is getting the three characters in the same place. That's the plot that I will look to advance. Which are you interested in?
I think the character scene, because that's kind of the setup of this funeral.
Sounds great. I love that. Character scene, and again, as a reminder to everyone, what is the issue that Father Knight struggles with?
So Father Knight's issue is guilt, because he got involved in this assassination attempt to kill the King James I, and because that would be changing the situation for his faith for the better in this context. At least that's what the conspirators believed, but he's struggling with the question of that is actually a valid way of acting for a religious man.
Nice.
Does
And
is this basically a situation where the outcome justifies the means?
interesting. So let's check in. If we're going with a failed assassination attempt, and we were going for like, this is a tilt on the history of actual Earth, that happened in England, right, at the opening of Parliament in 1605.
Yes.
So we're in England then?
I think so.
Okay, cool. Perfectly cool with me. Excellent. So you're holding this funeral in secret, and Father Knight looks different. Are there other people in the small crowd gathered here to pay respects to a fellow plotter who look weird, who look inhuman in the way that Father Knight
I
does?
think there's two, or there's three actually. There's the person who's dead, and then there's one in the crowd, and then I think like up somewhere hidden is a little girl that also looks different.
And it's a small chapel, so is the body effective not laid in state, but in a coffin in front of
something like this.
Father Knight behind a lectern, preaching in Latin. People, is it a call and response thing that's going on here?
Yeah, I think maybe we are in this kind of prayer, like it's towards the end, I think, of the service.
Nice. Yeah, we bring it in. And everyone is responding, but occasionally we hear sobs in the background. It's a very somber tone. We have perhaps some violin accompaniment that adds to the gravitas of this particular scene. And then Father Knight, what are a few of the words or the intent? What is he communicating over the body as you look upon your flock? They look broken. They failed. And this person died. And maybe guilt is influencing you, but you also see that these people, they could easily just disperse, just walk away and give up.
I think he's keeping it together for the appearance for them. But we can see that he's kind of, he's ready to be done with this ceremony so that he can be with himself and really reflect on this. So I think he is muttering some encouragement in between, like some Latin phrases, but it doesn't sound like he believes it. And I think then he just motions for the coffin to be taken away. And I think people from the crowd come up to pick it up and carry it out of the chapel.
Nice. And as they pick up the coffin, and it's a pauper's coffin, right? This is a small chapel. It's hidden away. This inhuman person who gave their life as part of this failed assassination plot had no money left behind. So the people got together out of guilt to pay for that. They start to carry it away, and as it passes by, we see the people who are in the small seating areas in the chapel. They watch, but the camera, as the coffin passes by, the camera zooms in a little bit on a woman who is cloaked, and we see just the bottom of her chin, and the fact that she's a woman is apparent, but we see within the light that her skin is blue, like Father Knight's. She looks younger. Does Father Knight stay? He wanted to be done. So does he stay behind as the people are going to carry the body out to bury it in an unmarked grave?
I think he turns around like and kneels in front of the altar and forgets like that there's still people here and waits for, like, he's basically expecting everyone to leave. And he was kind of continuing this prayer, right? And maybe everyone leaves, but just this woman remains. And he doesn't recognize, he's involved in this prayer, like, really, like, because he did the public service and now he's really going to reason with God about what has happened on his own, because he feels it's his thing. Like he has to make he has to come to a determination of what this means, what has happened.
Interesting. Let's move this to a conflict. Guilt is your issue. And I think the conflict here, as a protagonist, I'm going to say, does the guilt overwhelm you? Or are you able to find enough of an anchor to continue forward? What's at risk is this flock's faith in this chapel. Does that feel like something that's worthy of going to dice, as Rich can't stop saying? Sweet. All right. And I admit,
because it basically means whether or not he stays around maybe for this flock, right?
Exactly. So we're going to go into a conflict. Your screen presence for this pilot is 2. So I have a budget for this pilot of 6. I'm going to spend 3 to give myself 3 cards. And I'm going to stop sharing in just a second because I don't want you to see my cards. Because I'm evil! Not really. But I'm going to deal... Oh, you guys are all disconnected? Weird. Can you reconnect? Can you see that?
I'm trying.
Okay.
I think. No, I am.
So based on your screen presence, you automatically get 2 cards. You can bring in your an edge to get yourself another card. Your connection, she's here, so you could bring that. You could narrate the Archbishop, or Father Knight is thinking of the Archbishop. You can bring in any or all of these connections to give yourself more cards. You currently have 2 cards. You're looking for reds. I have 3 cards. I'm looking for reds. Do you want to use any of your traits? I'm going to put traits up again to remind myself. Traits to get yourself more cards.
I think Nocturne to go.
Okay, so we will use that, and I will deal you 1 more card. And now I'm going to stop sharing because I need to look at my cards. Actually, they're just a flip. What is Rich doing? All right, cool. I'm gonna pull my cards out here and display and reshare for the funds. Cool. I have 2 black cards and 1 red card. Can you actually manipulate these?
No, it looks like I'm connected, but I'm not getting the cards. I'm not
Okay. I
sure.
just dropped them onto the table. Can you manipulate them now?
No, I see the mouse moving around, but I don't see the things
How about
changing in
now?
the.
Okay. Weird. So you can't actually grab these? I'll flip them because really
Yeah,
it
flip
doesn't
them
you
for
can't
now. That's
manipulate
fine.
them. So I'll flip them. Oh, that's a good black card. Oh
Ooh.
man, nice. So it looks like you are going to pull this out. Rule summary. It is we got our scene ingredients, we got our players, set the scene in motion, we build to a crisis, we dealt the cards, and now we play out the resolution. So, do you have more red cards than the producer? Yes. Is your highest card higher than the producer's? Son of a bitch, it is! Yes! So, it is yes and. So, yes, and then yes and. With a character, that means you resist your impulse and everything goes your way. You don't lose your flock unless you, the player, choose that that's where you want to go. So tell us a little bit about this. How does this resolve out?
I think what happens is that this mysterious woman watches Father Knight being in intense prayer for another 5 minutes or so. And then she shakes her head, stands up, and leaves. He doesn't even notice. But then, after another, like, awkwardly long shot of him there, and you're always already asking yourself whether anything else is going to happen in this scene. I think that girl comes up to him and shakes his arm and kind of gets him out of this this being self-focused, lost in his own feelings of guilt here.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually goes, he stands up, he goes out there, and people are standing around the grave where they are lowering the coffin in, and they had already basically thought that he would not be joining them for this part of the ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
But he does show up at last. And so he does finish this, and he finds the right words. And you can see it in this, because I think it has been difficult for the last couple of weeks, right? Because he has not been able to provide for these people anymore because of this guilt. But it seems that he has found something at this moment, and is actually able to say the right words that gives these people some sort of hope again.
Nice. Nice. And you see eyes start to lift up and look to you. You see their faith being restored, the bread that they need. You see them start to move closer together, move closer to the burial site itself, huddling against the cold, murky, foggy London evening. Like that. Father Knight did not give in to his guilt. His impulse did not get the best of him. We hear in that small victory, we hear a far off sound of the clomping of boots, and soon the flock, your people, the people of the chapel, the fellow secret assassins, they start to get worried, and you see across their heads the silhouettes of guns with bayonets, and a whistle is blown, and there are, I looked it up, in 1605 there were redcoats. They are primarily in America. They're the soldiers in America, but I'm just going to declare this is a Disney Plus show, so we're very, very American in our stuff. So we'll just use redcoats as the inspiration. But it looks like they're coming for you, Father Knight. And we cut from that scene as we hear, yeah, we got 1 minute for a bit of a cliffhanger. Yeah. We cut from that one scene to blackness, and then we hear the sound of muskets. But then the sound of the ocean comes up, and we may jump ahead, but I like the idea of a bit of a cliffhanger with Captain Crawler in the middle of ship-to-ship combat, because if we're going to have a pirate ship, we need to have that. And we'll say that the flag that's being flown by the ship that you're up against looks scarily like a sentinel, maybe? Like it's this weird head. And there are people on this opposing ship who are firing muskets at you guys, and they're already opening up the gunwales. And your young mutant kids, they have powers, but they don't have a whole lot of knowledge about operating a ship. So what do we see Captain Crawler doing as you guys are in the middle of a pitched battle here?
Yeah, I think at first he's shouting orders like "man the guns" and that sort of thing. But when he sees that they are getting close enough to board us, then he launches himself into that. He's going to take the fight to the enemy, and because he's impulsive is his thing. He kind of just leaps into that and draws his sword.
Amazing. Cool. Then I think that's what we'll pick up with. We're very quickly in the next episode going to number one order, get the three of you together, and the second order is to focus on our spotlight character. So with that, just because I knew we wouldn't be able to get into a whole lot of mechanics, I at least wanted to see one scene from start to finish and set up something to tail on to the next. So let's carve our last few minutes here before we adjourn to talk about stars and wishes. So we'll start with wishes so we can end with stars. Who's got some wishes for the series? And the great thing about stars and wishes for this kind of game is it's easy enough for all of us to grant these wishes. Wishes are things you might want to have happen, or they could be a question for clarification so that I can make sure and focus on to make that part of the game clearer for you. It's wide open. And as a reminder, friends, I am the son of a Marine Corps sergeant who became a high school principal. So critical feedback on me that's fine. I thrive with it. I'm perfectly open to such. I shan't be defensive. So who'd like to kick off with wishes?
I mean, I mostly just need to play more of the game. We just barely started. It's hard to. That's my main wish. I would like our characters to meet up, and so we can start doing things together.
For sure, that is going to happen like right off the bat. I may even have Father Knight and Old Man Kurt. I'm like port in to the piratical ship, because that just seems like a great set piece to introduce your characters now that we know a bit about what they're about. So
maybe
very
the girl
good wish,
can
Marley.
pull Father Knight away to teleport to some other place or something.
Love it. Adrian, did you have any wishes?
Well, Well, I have to wish I have to learn about Nightcrawler now, which I did not really know about before this session. But I'm intrigued, and I think these three different Nightcrawlers are already extremely plastic to me. So I think they became characters right away that are identifiable, and which is interesting because they are all the same in a certain sense, but they're not in others. Yeah, so of course now this is the main thing. I want to explore this this character, this figure together with all of you. Yeah, broaden my Marvel knowledge.
Excellent. And then
I
Andesh,
think
what
I
about you?
also.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
I
No, go,
think I
Marlon.
also
Bring
want
it
to change my my issue. I feel like despair is not quite the right word. I think it's fatalistic.
up. Ooh, that's interesting because the despair has less action to it. The fatalistic is like, yeah, I'll do the thing. I like that. I think that's a great refinement.
Yeah, I think it's more like, it's not that yeah, nothing really matters in that kind of, yeah, it's going to happen the way it's going to happen. So that kind of,
Ouch.
I think, is a little easier to play with.
So sad.
I mean,
Excellent.
He's so sad. You guys will have to cheer him up.
So one of the things maybe, and we don't necessarily have to go into all of that, but just because this Brosnan brought into this game, I've always been very interested in like Elizabethan kind of 17th century England religious conflicts. And it's an interesting setting because basically these conflicts between Protestants and Catholics, right, are conflicts between people who don't have any way of distinguishing who might be a secret Catholic and who might not be, right? Like often religious persecution is in a context where it seems like you can identify the other, right? Like the other gets identified by visual identification or whatever, and then it's claimed that it's easy to see who it is, right? But in this case, it's like everyone paranoid situation, right? Because everyone could be a secret Catholic, right? So that's a kind of fun context, maybe. So yeah, we'll see what comes out of that. Assassinations and secret Catholicism and so on. But apart from that, I mean, pirates are also great. So let's go there first.
Cool. Maybe I don't stick with it. That's interesting. Okay, cool. Andesh, what about you? Do you have any wishes?
I kind of want Mystique to show up at some point. Not necessarily as a major character, but she's just cool and she has some connection with Nightcrawler, at least in some some versions. So I think that would be.
That is a great wish. You went last with wishes. You could go first with stars. What stars did you have?
Yeah, I think we did a solid job. This is my first time playing PTA, but we noticed some things that weren't quite because we have a bit of a weird setup, but I think we worked around that and talked about it, and I think we've got it uh, into something that works within the system as well as with the setup. So star to us, all of us, I guess, for that. And stars to Adrian and Marley for coming up with these cool night crawlers. I want to read more comics about them. So,
I agree.
yeah, I'll stop there.
Okay. Adrian, what about you? Did you have any stars?
I think I really very much like the first scene with with New York and the space elevator and the Nightcrawler, kind of, yeah. That gave me directly like a really interesting atmosphere for the start of the series. So start for that.
Nice, nice. And last but not least, Marley, did you have any stars?
Nothing really specific. It's more, I wasn't entirely sure where we were going to end up, and I feel like we got to a really good place. These Nightcrawlers are all very interesting, and I can't wait to see how they bounce off of each other. Oh, the props also for to you for coming up with the crazy voice manipulator thing for the BAMF. That's nutty.
I'm glad that it's not too much. I was like, oh, is this too much? This could be too much. I maybe should not have gone this without checking in. I'm glad you liked it. Okay, excellent.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Cool.
if it's happening constantly, it might become a little much, but so far it's been fun.
Yes, I will do my best to limit myself, and I am open again to feedback of, hey, Rich, back off on the chipmunk voice. Cool. Good stuff. This Nightcrawler series is going to be amazing. I'm very excited about it. We got to see some cards. We got to see some plots develop. We will throw it into full tilt next week when we meet to play some more Primetime Adventures. Thank you all so much for playing. With that, we'll stop the recording.